Hello, guys. I am back, and this time I have a book review. I've read tons of books this month, partly because I've been sick and partly because I've just been stuck in the house. It's January, but I really wanted to discuss this book with you. I highly recommend it, and it goes side by side with FX's new show, American True Crime: The Assassination of Gianni Versace. So, the book I'm talking about is Vulgar Favors by Maureen Orth. And this book dives into the story of Andrew Cunanan, I think that's the proper way of saying it, who was a serial killer who killed at least 5 people, whom are all listed on the back. So the story, I'm going to talk about the book as well as the TV show because I highly recommend both. I instantly wanted to read the book because the story and the writing of the television show is based on this book. And this book dives into the investigation the whole way of trying to catch him. And honestly, it is, and it says on the title, the largest failed manhunt in history. There was so many errors with the investigation as well as slip-ups and just laziness that caused, unfortunately, in my opinion and in the author's opinion and other law enforcement opinion, more lives to be taken. And also, the book briefly states it, but I think it's pretty obvious that I'm more than certain that he probably did kill more than 5 people, but those are the ones that he was caught. Like, he left clues for the cops to find. And a lot of times they didn't even find them. He would leave it like he wanted credit for doing what he did. It starts off with introducing his mother in modern time of the book, whom is eccentric to say the least, and also can be very childlike and has mental illness. They did dive in to say that she ended up having a lot of mental illness after from as a result of postpartum after one of his siblings were born. But I don't think that's just it. And I think that he may have genetically taken on some of the mental illness. They describe from birth through high school, which is when his new character that he essentially was playing came to life. Mostly middle school and high school. He was a narcissist, compulsive liar, storyteller. And they talked to a lot of his friends and even some of his like a girlfriend that he had that he later, I think at the age of 16, told her that he was gay. Um, they were very close before. He was always extravagant and over the top. He wanted the best of the best. He was obsessed with Mercedes. He was obsessed with Vogue magazine. He was obsessed with Versace since he was young. I believe he was 27 or 28 years old when he died, and he did die by suicide. And so half of his life, essentially, probably 13, 14 years old, is where this obsession started. Supposedly, they say. Now, the Versace family, does not agree with things that are in the book and also in the TV show. The TV show does, spoiler, mention or try to allude to the fact that Versace did have HIV. Now the investigation, the big thing was there was 4 different things that they said was the reason why he went and killed all these 5 people. Okay, was one, like, failed love triangles, drug deal gone wrong, because this book also talks about he did extensive drug dealing and drug usage. And that's pretty much a lot of the reason, other than that being a gigolo, and just using men to get money. I guess having sugar daddies, I guess. He really didn't have known jobs. He was able to sustain a very heavy drug habit. And I don't know about you, and I know people in my life that have struggled with drugs and also had mental illness. What a lethal combo. Dangerous, to say the least. This book is what, 400, about 430 pages, but it was fascinating. I read it in like less than 2 days. So the first person that he killed was one of his friends. The second person was somebody that he had a little bit of a romance with, but wouldn't commit fully to him. The third person he killed, um, now there's argument about whether or not they knew each other. And the family themselves, his name is Lee Miglin, and he, I believe, was 7 years old. He lived in Chicago, and the family refuses to believe that he had any gay encounters. He had been married for a very long time to a HSN or QVC perfume company owner, the woman was. And then he killed just a random man in New Jersey because he wanted his truck, essentially. And then the last person supposedly was Gianni Versace. So, um, like I said, most likely killed more than 5 people, and they dived into that. He manipulated situations and used people, resources, their money, their vehicles, their trust, um, to make all these deaths happen, pretty much. So he killed Jeff, the first one, and David, who was the second victim's apartment, but convinced David to leave town. And then later, after he convinced him to leave town and with his car, shot him in the back of the head and between the shoulder blades, left him to, and that was in Minnesota. Both the first two were. Then drives to Chicago and meets Lee Miglin. To me, honestly, in my opinion, he definitely must have knew Lee. Now, the story about Lee is he has a son named Duke, and within this book, um, they would have people talking about a Duke that was an investor that Andrew knew in Chicago. So the theory is that he may have known Duke's father just because he had known him through maybe being in some sort of romantic thing with Duke, or maybe Lee and his son Duke both were gay. Who knows? But the family refuses until this day to acknowledge any of that or even make that any sort of substantial reason why he was killed. They just say it was random. But if you've read the book and you know the investigation, it's very obvious that his murders weren't random. And the only reason that William Reese, which was the fourth man that was killed is because he knew they were on him with the vehicle that he had, because in Lee Miglin's car, there was a telephone that had tracking in it. And I think he had a Lexus. So he needed a new truck or a new car. So essentially, if he would have just taken the car and Bill would have saw him, he would have reported him to where he was to the cops. So he had to kill him. So then he drove that was in South New Jersey. He drove all the way to Miami, and he lived in Miami, if I'm not mistaken, for 2 months in the Normandy Plaza. They do show this part in the um, show, and there is another episode on tonight. And I don't want to spoil all of it, but I wanted to introduce both to you. But a lot of the things in the stories that their friends said in this book, they're using in the show. And when I went back to read this, I went, wow, I really liked how authentic they seem to have made this so far. This was disturbing to read. Because it's like a ticking time bomb. You saw his behaviors, his eccentric lifestyle and behavior and personality, and you already knew what was going to happen, but you just wanted to know how it happened, what led up to it. So if you watch the show, or if you're interested and maybe you're one of those people that likes to read about serial killers or whatever, this book did such a phenomenal job of diving right in. And they also gave you a lot of information about the investigation themselves, talking about how they took information from witnesses that was completely false and based their whole investigation on it, to the point where they would lose 4 days at a time, and he would already, at one point, he traveled 1,100 miles in 2 days. So it is the largest failed manhunt in history. And it was the part of the reason why they mentioned in here is because after the O.J. Simpson investigation and trial, a lot of things changed in terms of the FBI, and they had to be extremely, extremely certain of their evidence, just clear cut, closed book. And with Andrew, they didn't have that for a while. So he just kept killing people, and they still didn't have enough to get him. And they also couldn't find him. It's just crazy to me. It's really crazy to me. So, you want a good book recommendation? Vulgar Favors by Maureen Orth. And definitely watch American True Crime or American Crime Story, The Assassination of Gianni Versace. I hope you guys enjoyed this. This is something a little bit different, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.